you have great metaphor, analogies, imagery.
I've been working on it. Thanks. Usually I'm like, this is what you should think. Just get it. And I realize we learn, and myself and Coda, we learn better with metaphors and analogies.
Well, yeah, we communicate through stories.
Stories.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, even just in this interview, you've told so many stories about yourself. And it like really paints a good picture of who you are.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. That's really...
Thank you. I should come up with another good story. I have a kind of a crazy story to tell.
Okay.
It's kind of crazy.
Okay.
So, all right. I was in college.
Yeah.
And I was going to college at UC Santa Barbara.
Okay.
Or I think I started at the community college, which was awesome. I highly recommend that because you save a lot of money. So I was either at the community college in Santa Barbara, or I had already transferred to the university. But I went to high school in San Diego. So I would, during the summers off from college, I would go and spend a lot of time down in San Diego.
Okay.
Well, one summer I was down in San Diego, and it was right before I was supposed to go back up to Santa Barbara for school. And I ran into this guy that I kind of knew of in Santa Barbara. Like, we had never hung out, but like I had seen him at parties. Like, I generally knew who he was.
Yeah.
And we saw each other at this party, and I mentioned that I was driving back up to Santa Barbara the next day. And he's like, "Oh, cool. Can I catch a ride with you?" Yeah. And truth be told, I knew that he was not like a super upstanding citizen. I knew that he was a party guy and definitely seemed kind of rough around the edges. But I was like, whatever, I'm just giving him a ride. So the next morning, we get together and we start this journey. And I had wanted to stop off in Long Beach to visit a friend of mine. Okay. And so we stop off and we're driving through Long Beach. And all of a sudden, there are lights and sirens behind me. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on?" And I was like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Like, my registration's expired on my car. I knew I was going to get pulled over, but I'm going to get it done. I'm sure they'll just let us go." Yeah. Well, I pull over to the side of the road, and as soon as I hit the brake on the side of the road, this guy throws open my car door and runs from the vehicle. And I'm like, that escalated quickly, right? Like, what's going on? Wow. And so the cop runs out of his car. He calls for backup. He tackles the guy on the side of the road in Long Beach. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then before I knew it, some other cop is pulling me out of the driver's seat and putting me in the back of a cop car. Okay. And so I'm sitting in the back of the cop car. This is circa like 2004, just for context. Okay. I did not do this. This has not happened to me recently. This is a long 20 years ago. So I'm in the back of the cop car, and I don't know where he was. I think he was in cuffs or on like the ground, or maybe he was in a different cop car. Sure. But now I'm seeing them starting to search my vehicle. Okay. And I'm like, okay, whatever. They're pulling stuff out of my back seat. They open up the trunk, and I'm trying to look through the window from the back of the cop car. What the heck they're doing? Like, just let this be over, right? Yeah. And before I know it, pulling out of my wheel well in the back of my car, they pulled out a pillowcase size full of white pills in a clear plastic bag. And I'm like, oh, my life is over. Oh, like, no. What? And so before I know it, then there's like a camera in my face, and they're like questioning me on camera about this enormous quantity of probably illegal pills that they found in my trunk. Sure. So I get thrown in jail in Long Beach, California. And, I'm sitting in like the Long Beach jail, which is, it's not like LA County, it's just the jail. But one day, for whatever reason, they put me on the bus, like the jailbird bus, to take me to LA County to see the judge. And while I was on the bus, I'll never forget, I'm just sitting here like, I was literally in the first seat right behind the driver because I just wanted to be somewhere where there was like someone who could like protect me. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, nobody talked to me. Like, I'm actually not usually that scared around. I have been in jail before. When I was in college, I got like a drunk in public once walking around Santa Barbara. Sure. And so, going to jail actually is not the worst thing if you're not in big trouble, depending on the circumstances. because you meet a lot of very interesting people. But on this bus, I was like, this does not feel good. Of course, some girl comes up behind me and she's like, hey, do you want a hit of, I don't even know what she was offering me. So I had to decline drugs while I was being held in jail on a potential drug charge. And I was like, no, I'm good, thanks. I'm good. So I had to go to LA County. I meet more interesting people because you're in holding cells for like hours.
Yeah.
So I make it back. For whatever reason, I didn't see the judge. They send me back to the Long Beach jail. And a couple days later, they let me out. And in my naive 19-year-old brain or whatever, however old I was, I thought, oh, thank gosh, that's over.
Yeah.
So I have a friend who came to pick me up. I ended up having to get my car out of impound and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So anyways, I make it back up to Santa Barbara. I'm living my life until about 2 or 3 weeks later, my dad calls me and he says, Kate, we received a letter that says that you are being charged by the state of California with 28 counts of possession of a controlled substance with intent to sell. And we looked it up, and it has a maximum prison sentence of 18 years.
Oh my gosh.
And I am freaking out.
Yeah.
Right? Like my stomach drops. And thank God my dad got me a lawyer at that time. I think it was like a couple $1,000s, maybe $3,000 on this lawyer.
Oh my God.
And I had to go to multiple court dates. And eventually they my lawyer had recommended that I create what's called a character packet. And I was like, what's a character packet? He said, well, just write down all the ways that you're an upstanding citizen, your grades, any jobs that you've held, any letters of recommendation.
Okay.
So I did that. And at the last minute, I decided to put my high school senior picture that I had. You remember those wallets of our high school? And I have one that I'm like looking like an angel. My hands are like this and I'm looking up. And I just decided at the last minute to tape one to the front of this character packet that I like printed off at the college that I was going to. Well, that day I saw the judge, and then my lawyer was invited back into the judge's chambers, and he put the story that he told me later was, hey, I put that character packet on the desk in front of the judge, and he opted to believe you and dismiss all of the charges. And the reason that happened is because I'm white, right?
Yeah.
Because if I was another race, I would be in prison. And that's absolutely deplorable and absolutely horrible. However, I was set free.
Yeah.
The charges were dismissed.
Yeah.
Under like I had to make a promise and sign a paper that if I ever ran into that guy again, that I had to turn him in. Otherwise, I was going to get in trouble or whatever. Sure. And the reason that I tell this story, other than it's a crazy story, because I literally could have gone to prison I probably wouldn't have served 18 years. I probably would have been 2, 4, 6 years, something like that. I would have been a prison lady. Yeah. Yeah. And the lesson that I take from that story is like, the smallest decisions can have actually a really huge impact on our life, right? Like the smallest decision, I'm going to give this kind of shifty guy a ride. And before I knew it, I was being used as a drug mule and could have ended up in prison for a big part of my life. And so I was almost a jailbird.
Wow. Man.
Be careful, kids. Literally, one decision, hanging out with the wrong people. That's what the parents say to us. Oh, you hang out with the wrong kids. And this is a time that literally hanging out with the wrong guy could have forever changed I would have had a felony on my record, you know?
Wow, yeah.